Thank you. Good evening. Tonight's Committee of Adjustment hearing is being video held by video conference at live streaming video on the town's live stream page at oakville.ca. This is a hearing to consider applications for minor variance and consents held under the authority of the Planning Act. Please keep in mind the intent of this process is to review the application that is before the committee, listen to the evidence, and then make a decision. This process is not intended to be used to resolve any concerns or disputes that may exist between the town, individuals, or organizations. If a request for a deferral is made and the committee grants such a request, the applicant or authorized agent must contact the Secretary Treasurer to schedule a new hearing date. In order to conduct an effective and efficient electronic hearing, we have adopted the following process. If you are watching the live stream of this hearing at oakville.ca and you wish to speak to an item on the agenda, you can call 905-815-6095. Again, the phone number is 905-815-6095. The phone number will also be posted on the live stream page at oakville.ca. Staff will be standing by to take your call. When you call in, staff will ask for your name and item number that you wish to address, and your telephone number. And then further instructions will be provided to you to call back to join the video conference. When the chair of the committee polls for interested parties, you'll have to press *6 to unmute yourself. The applicant agent will then be given the opportunity to briefly explain to the committee the basis of the application and answer any questions that may arise. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided for each presentation. You will need to state your full name and address for the record. Any submissions beyond the 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the committee. All delegations must also state their full name and address for the record. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided for each presentation. All remarks and questions are to be directed to the chair. Any submissions beyond the 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the committee. The applicant or agent will then be provided with a further 5 minutes to answer any questions that may arise and address any concerns that have been raised by interested parties. If the applicant or agent has any concerns found in the staff report, particularly with proposed conditions, this will be the opportunity to advise us. The matter will then be taken into committee for the decision, and this will mark the end of all discussion. Any person desiring a notice of decision for an application must provide a written request, preferably through email, to the Secretary Treasurer. Written notice of the committee's decision will be mailed no later than 10 days for minor variance, 15 days for consent. The applicant and or agent and any other person who has filed a written request for this notice. The last day to appeal the decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal will be noted on the decision. Please note that only the applicant, specified persons, or public bodies may appeal the committee's decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal. In November of 2022, the Bill 23 legislation, which is the More Homes Built Faster Act, amended the Planning Act to remove any appeal rights for members of the public. If no appeal is received within the prescribed timeframe, the decision of the committee becomes final and binding, and the Secretary Treasurer will then be notified of the applicant and anyone who has received a copy of the decision through written correspondence. People participating in this hearing are to be courteous to and respectful of the members of the committee, town staff, and any other person who has participated in this electronic hearing. Tonight's electronic hearing is being video recorded and available for future viewing at oakville.ca. Thank you. We have one regret, Mr. John Hardcastle, and I'll be now declarations of pecuniary interests. Mr. Talowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'm going to declare a conflict on items A162 and 163. The applicant's an affiliated company with my former employer from which I just recently retired.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Talowski. Any other declarations? See none. Madam Secretary Treasurer, I'll now be taking requests for deferral or withdrawal of applications. If you're interested in deferring your application to further work with staff, please raise your hand and the Secretary Treasurer will invite you to speak.
Madam Chair, I have one hand up. David Nelson, I will move him in right now. Madam Chair, I've moved him in, but he's still on mute.
Mr. Nelson, can you press *6 to unmute yourself?
I'm sorry. Here I am talking away to myself, Madam Chair.
No problem. How are you? Go ahead.
I'm fine. Item A 166, 2025 being 466 Morden Road. Just a little background for you to help you with your decision. I do want to defer the application to January 21st, 2026, and I would also request a waiver on the fee for deferral. And I'll give you a little bit of background. I submitted a building permit application in late September of this year, and by the first week in November, through discussions with the zoning officer and my architect, we determined that we had a deficiency in parking on this property, and we could not obtain the additional 10 spaces on the site. So I proceeded to apply to Committee of Adjustment. I reached out to a transportation engineer to have a consultant on board to prepare a report to support the application, and we moved forward. In November, late November 24th through to December 1st and 2nd, we had multiple discussions with planning staff and transportation engineering staff, and determined that we needed to have a proper terms of reference for a study that would be supportive of an application. And so that's where we are at the moment. I did reach out to the Secretary Treasurer on November 27th, and I advised her that I would be requesting this deferral.
Okay. I'm still not understanding why you're seeking relief from the fee of the deferral.
Because of the amount of money that we've spent trying to get to this point, and the timing, the fact that I had submitted the application, and then we ran up against the requirements for further study in order to proceed.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Nelson? But there is no fault on the town's part in any way in terms of the delays. This all came back from your end.
Yes, through meetings with development engineer, or not development engineering, transportation engineering and planning, we determined we needed this extra work.
And had the meeting date been already assigned? Is that it?
It's not assigned, but we're hoping to get on to January 21st, 2026.
No, I mean, before you decided to apply for a deferral, you
Oh,
had
yes, definitely, definitely.
Okay. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm not swayed by that. Like, people come up with difficulties in terms of their planning all the time, and unless there is an error on the town's part, I'm not inclined to give relief from a fee that applies to everyone. But I will we'll have the discussion and we'll take it from there. Members? Mr. Dickey, you would like to say something?
I tend to agree with you. I don't know if the procedure would be if you ask us if we approve the approval. I'm sorry, ask us to whether we approve the deferral and then come back and ask us if we want to impose a fee or not. Did you want to do that in a two-step process or a one-step
No, I'd
process?
like to just, get your take on the request to waive the fee, and then we can vote on the actual deferral.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with what your thought process is, that it doesn't seem to be the town's. We haven't heard that it's the town's fault, and therefore, if the applicant is asking for a deferral, there should be a deferral fee. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else care to comment? Go ahead, Mr. Talowski.
Madam Chair, similarly, I'd be happy to support a simple deferral to be rescheduled in available time with the Secretary Treasurer, but no more.
Very well. I'll entertain a motion then. All those in support of a deferral and maintaining the regular fee? Okay, the application has been deferred, Mr. Nelson. You'll have to pay the regular fee as everyone does.
No problem, Madam Chair. Thank you very much. Good
Thank
evening, members of the committee.
Have a good evening. Okay, any other deferrals, Madam Secretary Treasurer, before we move on?
No, Madam Chair, I don't see any hands up.
All right. We'll proceed with the first item on our agenda, which is application. Oh, Ms. Price.
Yeah, I was just want to say, on my visits yesterday, the Tansley property did not have a sign posted.
Okay. That's application 165 of 2025.
Yes.
And that is 1382 Tansley Drive, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is Miss Evangelista with us right now?
Yes, Madam Chair, she is here. Would you like me
Can
to
you
move her
move
over?
her in? Yes.
Okay, she's moving in now.
Hello.
Hello, Miss Evangelista, how are you?
Okay. Hi.
Hi.
I heard through. Okay. I heard through you, Madam Chair, Member Price mentioned that there was no sign. I put the sign up. We hammered that into that ground. So I don't know who took that sign down, but it wasn't reported to me that it was removed. I actually called the owners also. So what do you?
Well, as you know, you've been before us plenty of times. The procedure
Yes.
bylaw says that we have to defer this application because there wasn't enough notice given the fact that we passed by and there was no sign there. So it didn't meet the requirements for the amount of days that it needed to be there before the application is heard before the committee. This is what we have done in the past, and for the past few years now, we've been very strict because now we're in winter and sometimes it gets blown away, but it's really on the honesty is on the applicant to maintain that sign at all times, regardless of whether it was vandalism or not. So we will be deferring your application. Hopefully we'll be able to get you in at the earliest time possible. You'll have to see the Secretary Treasurer for that.
Okay, I understand. All right.
Thank you. All right.
All right.
Have a good evening.
Okay, thanks.
And
Bye.
I'll just
yes.
make a mention of Mr. John Roberts, who had requested to attend. If you are present in the audience, you'll get another notice when the application is before us.
His name is John Roberts?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And he wanted to attend.
Yeah,
and
it might be a neighbor. You can ask the Secretary Treasurer for that information. Maybe she'll be able to assist you. But that's all the information that's before me right now.
Okay, I appreciate it, Madam Chair, and wishing you all a very Merry Christmas.
And to you as well. Thank you.
Okay.
And a Happy New Year. Take care.
Yes, to you too.
Bye.
Sorry, Madam Chair, can I just interrupt? Can I ask a motion? Can you vote on the deferral?
Motion, yes, I apologize. Yes, motion to defer. Okay, the application has been deferred. Miss Evangelista, your mic's still on.
Okay.
I'm hearing your sighs and I feel you, but I don't think anyone else wants to right now.
My apologies.
No worries.
Good thing nothing else came out of my mouth.
No, that's okay. It's understandable.
Ciao.
Okay. Take care. Okay. Anyone else? My eyes are on the screen now if everyone else has their hands up. Sometimes I know I have to look up. Oh, here we go. So application 159 of 2025 at 15 Pebble Ridge Place. And that's, again, application 159 of 2025 at 15 Pebble Ridge Place. I have Jim Pfeffer as the agent.
I'm here. I'm Jim Pfeffer of 95 St. Clair Avenue West. And I hope we can keep this fairly simple. I did send in a presentation, which I think is just coming up. So this project has been before the committee before. So we got approval for the original house, and we got approval later on for the cabana. And what's happened now is the construction of that very short retaining wall that you see highlighted in red at the sort of bottom of the plan does not comply with the zoning. And you know, it's an unfortunate sort of mistake that was made on site, and that's now an as-built condition. If we go on to the next page, I think I can explain how this came to be. You can see a couple of sets of dimensions there. There's a set of dimension in blue, which is the set of dimensions to the stair, and we would actually comply with the permitted encroachment criteria for stairs. However, when this went for building permit, they said, well, we're really looking at the stairs and the retaining wall for the stairs together as one piece. So together, the stairs and the retaining wall together do not meet the permitted encroachment requirements, notwithstanding the fact that there is still a pretty generous setback to the side property line. And that stair and the retaining wall, they go to a basement walkout. This site is kind of a butts Lake Ontario, so it kind of slopes down a lot towards the back. So we made the correction. The drawings were issued to the site and the building permit was issued. That retaining wall moved in, but somehow That change never made it to the site, and the retaining wall was built in the position that you see it here. And I think at this point, of course, they could jackhammer out the retaining wall and sort of put it back together with a new pour, but that would be actually a much poorer form of construction. It would be less resilient, less durable in the long term, and just doing that, destruction now, it's loud, it's noisy, it generates waste, and it actually would lead to a much less durable building. So it really wouldn't be desirable to take it out right now, which is why we're asking the committee to just approve this minor encroachment. Staff, as you will have seen, thinks that this is both minor, appropriate, desirable. If you go to the next page, you can see just a side elevation here, and you can see, is there one more? Oh yeah, there we go. So this is the side elevation. You can see just how very small that retaining wall pops up above the grade at the side of the house. The well inside is about 4 feet deep. And there's a similar inroad view from the back. And you can just see, if you were looking from the back of the house, how that retaining wall would appear. And I just point out that since this was a mistake that we made from the outset, the drawing of this retaining wall in this current position was reviewed by the site grading engineer, and it was also reviewed by Conservation Halton in this present position. So now there's no issue with grading. Of course, the site just slopes right back to Lake Ontario, and Conservation Halton is okay with it. City staff is okay with it. So I hope I hope you understand what's going on here, and yeah, I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions for Mr. Pfeffer? Mr. Dickey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This stairway is going down to the basement, the underground parking, not below the two-story house, so to speak?
Yeah, that's right. It's so the site slopes down towards the lake, and this is at the back of the property, more on the Lake Ontario side. So it is essentially a walkout, but you go down a few steps to get into a recreation area in the basement. So
I'll just make this comment. You've totaled 6 variances on the property, 6 variances, including the ones you came for before. Yeah. On a property that doesn't have an unusual shape, like or anything else. And to me, if this had come as 6 variances from the beginning, I'd be starting to say, is this type of a house appropriate or desirable for the lot? But you've come at 2 different. I understand you made a mistake, and don't get me wrong here. I'm just sort of, I'm just putting forth my position for future reference.
Yep.
When I see 6 variances on a lot, I think there's a problem, and that it wasn't. Those aren't 6 variances aren't minor, and I begin to wonder if it's appropriate and desirable. Your situation here, I'll say it happened a little differently, but I'm just saying, be aware that isn't something I like to see. So be it. Just telling you how I feel.
Absolutely. And I think if we had understood this at the outset, absolutely, we would have just made a narrower stair from the outset, as we did and we made a narrower stair. We said that to the site. It is unfortunate that it's come back like this. And I certainly think your point is very well taken.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Pfeffer, it also gives the perception that people apply for variances and come back with oops, and, I see the neighbor's letter, and I see what kind of perception it gives. Okay, so you've been before us plenty of times to know that how this looks as well.
I do.
Okay, anything else from any other member? Okay, we'll take the matter before I do, I note the letter of objection from Dr. Robert Saunders. Is he in the audience? Did he raise his hand? He'd like to speak.
No, Madam Chair, there are no hands up.
Okay, very well. I'll also mention, just because we've read the letter, it's in submission. There is a comment that the crew starts before the 7 a.m. curfew. So maybe you can get that back to your client. And Mr. Saunders, if you're listening, and that just goes straight to zoning enforcement. You call them up
Absolutely.
and they take care of it. But now it's on record, and Mr. Pfeffer can let his clients know.
Absolutely.
Okay, who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Tavowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'm satisfied that this variance meets the Foretest of Planning Act and there won't be any impacts from this variance. I accept Mr. Pfeffer's submissions on how this happened. It's not coming back after the fact to say, oops, we filled in that open space and now we need a floor area variance. I would note that there is the one letter of objection, but however, Madam Chair, that letter of objection does not factor into my decision as it does not speak to the variance that's in front of the committee. So with that, Madam Chair, I move the application be approved as applied for, subject to two conditions: that the dwelling be constructed in general accordance with the site plan dated October 31st, 2025, and the elevations dated October 24th, 2025, and that the variance expires if the building permit hasn't been issued within 2 years.
Thank you, Mr. Tusk. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved. None opposed.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening and happy holiday season.
And to you as well. Application 160 of 2025 at 541 Wellington Crescent. Again, that's application 160 at 541 Wellington Crescent. I have Joe Dome here as the agent. Go ahead, Mr. Dome.
Yes, Joe Dome, 133 Torresdale Avenue, agent for the owner. The owner would like to construct a new two-story dwelling. And to note, we have been through the pre-consultation process with staff, and some changes were made to according to their recommendations, and staff have no concerns with the application as per the comments on file. There's one variance proposed for an RFA of 44%. The dwelling is sensitively designed with massing mitigation features such as articulation on all sides of the dwelling and varying roof heights. There are significant second floor step backs on the west side front facade above the garage, as well as on the northeast rear corner. And the rear second floor portion located above the covered porch is also stepped back considerably from both side lot lines, 3.65 meters from the west side lot line and nearly 6 meters from the east side lot line. And the proposed RFA increase is relatively modest in this context, and the application complies with the bylaw for lot coverage, setbacks, and height. And also for context, a number of similar RFA variances for new dwellings were approved almost directly behind the subject property, just to the northwest at 552 and 556 Weir Avenue. That would be 43.95% and 43.9%, as well as 528 Weir directly east at 43.87%. And overall, we feel the application is reasonable and minor in nature, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Dome at this time? Okay, has anyone called with interest for this application, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
No, Madam Chair, there have been no calls and no one has their hand up.
Very well, thank you. I'll take the motion then. Go ahead, Ms. Price.
Taking into consideration my site visit, the agent's presentation, as well as the reports from the agent and staff, I believe the variance to be minor in nature and is in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw. Reducing the massing and scale, as well as adding architectural projections and setbacks has helped to ensure that there's no adverse impacts on the abutting properties. I note that there have been no letters or emails in opposition. In conclusion, I believe the 4 tests of the Planning Act have been met, and I recommend that the proposed application be approved subject to the following conditions. The dwelling be constructed in general accordance with submitted site plan and elevation drawings dated October 16th, 2025, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Thank you, Ms. Price. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Seeing none, all those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed. Have a good evening. Application 161 at 287 Watson Avenue. Again, that's application 161 of 2025 at 287 Watson Avenue. I have Mr. Fratacangeli as the agent.
Yes, good evening, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can. Go ahead.
Hi, Matthew Fratacangeli from 10 House Building Workshop here. I'm the agent of the owner. Address for the record is 107 Gladstone Avenue in Hamilton, Ontario. Here this evening for a minor variance application to permit a modest rear covered porch with an area of 14.9 square meters. We're requesting one variance, which is lot coverage increase to 26.2%, where 19% is the maximum. I'd like to note that currently the site is over the allowable lot coverage at 23.9%, so the proposal represents an increase of only 2.3% for the covered porch. I do want to thank staff for the review and for recommending no objection and confirming that the variances meet, the one variance meets all 4 tests of the Planning Act. We've also received 2 letters of support, which have been submitted to staff. I believe the application is fairly straightforward, so I defer to the committee for any questions on this one.
Very well. Any questions of the applicant at this time? Mr. Dickey?
Yes, Madam Chair. I'm not quite sure if my question might be to the town planner, but when I look at these the site plan, I see the sheds seem to be right on the lot line. And I thought for a shed, an existing shed, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying they're new sheds. For an existing shed, I thought there had to be a setback, a rear yard setback for that. So I'm just confirming my understanding. If that's what I thought was the situation, I thought they'd be also asking for a variance for the sheds not having a setback. Maybe the town planner can correct me on my understanding how the zoning, that portion of the zoning bylaw applies.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Madam Chair. The shed is currently in compliance, so the step back will not be required as it's currently existent. The applicant is proposing a variance for the porch at the end, not the shed, as it's compliant.
Oh, Madam Chair, just to clear, so the thought process is because the shed exists, it's legal non-conforming.
The applicant is not proposing a variance for the shed. So we currently looking at the variance for the covered porch. The shed is not subject to a variance. They're not replacing the shed. Sorry.
I just thought in the past, in a couple of years that I've been there, we've looked before where there was existing sheds that were on lot lines and they had to require variance. But okay, I'm just trying to straighten to see if I haven't had properly the rules in my mind. Maybe I don't have them correctly, but okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, any other questions? That gives us clarification. See none. Okay, who would like to move a motion? Has anyone called for this application, Madam Secretary?
No, Madam Chair, there have been no calls and no one has their hand up.
Very well. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Dick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Based upon my review of the application, my site my site visit, the applicant's description of the proposal, I am prepared to make a motion for approval because in my opinion, the proposal meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act. And that approval is conditional upon the conditions that the proposed rear covered porch be constructed in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevations dated November 3rd, 2025, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There's discussion on this recommendation. I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members, and happy holidays to you all.
You as well. Okay, we're hearing application 162 and 163 together, but we'll be moving them separately. So application 162 and 163 of 2025 at Pavilion Path. And this is Mr. Michael Tarowski's conflict. So Madam Secretary Treasurer, you'll remove. Okay. Again, now it's application 162 and 163 of 2025 at Pavilion Path. Okay.
Madam Chair, I've moved Paul DeMello in. He will be speaking to this application.
Very well, thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of council. I hope you can hear me.
Yep, very well, thank you.
Thank you. My name is Paul DeMello. I'm a lawyer with a partner with the firm of Kagan Shastri DeMello Weiner Park. We are counsel to Treasure Hill, the parent company of Pavilion Path. And I am here to speak in regards to both variances A162 and 163. And I see the slide is presented, so I appreciate that. If we could go to the next picture on the slide. This, Madam Chair, is really a minor variance to provide for high-density development in what we call the missing middle. It provides for family-sized 3-bedroom units in a stacked back-to-back townhouse form. In particular, this would propose for the development of approximately 306 housing units, which our clients prepared to start in 2026, subject to the approvals. And as it's noted there, that alone represents about 10% of Oakville's target in terms of homes for the year. The missing middle housing is identified as the stacked back-to-back townhomes dwellings. And if I could put it beyond simply the 3-bedroom family-sized units meeting the missing middle, it really seeks to address that key component, that demographic of providing for housing that is appropriate and suitable for families themselves. There are a lot of developments that proceed with smaller units that are not really suited to the families. This is intended to address that and provide that within his existing residential community. If you have seen this going through, it's very much a family-oriented residential community. The units are also developed with underground parking, which is connection, and in many ways, the structure of the development represents an apartment style, but really it's an apartment style that's on its side rather than a vertical. The existing approval on the subject site provides for, and there's a site plan approval that would provide for 2 12-story towers, different mix of units, a different composition, but a much higher imposing development than the current form of development that's proposed on the community. Regional allocation is in place, and you will have seen there are comments from the region. Principally, those comments deal with an open site plan application as currently in place for the two 12-story towers. However, that proposal is no longer proceeding. The allocation that's available to the site still remains. So this is a project that is essentially subject to the approval of the variances, in many respects, shovel ready to go and to deliver housing to the community. If I can go to the next slide. This is a site plan, a depiction of the site. And as you can see, it's configured around 306 dwelling units, 14 three-story buildings, with anywhere from 16 to 24 units in each. And as I've said, it's all serviced by one underground parking facility centrally located. The three-story dwelling, the three-story buildings, while they're three-story buildings, you'll see in the next slide, they actually are more in line with four-story buildings. This is just, the configuration with regards to the underground parking, 306 units, as you'll see, for all the spaces provided. We also have visitor parking spaces that are provided and bike lockers that are also provided, all of which will support the transit supportive development. If I could go to the next slide. The variances are required to extend the permission that already exists on Block A. If you see on Block A, stacked townhomes in this form are already a permitted use. On Block C and B, they were not, and that was because in the original application, a previous application that was made, there was a site-specific development proposal that had the towers wrapping around the block. Block A was intended to be more of a transition to the more traditional townhomes that you find at the back. That are already constructed and are depicted in the aerial. If I could go on further, as I said, the relief is required to extend to blocks C and B below. If we could go to the next slide. With regards to the official plan conformity, high residential buildings, which is what the intent and direction of the official plan is for this core and Dundas area core, high residential buildings include buildings uses shall consist of stacked townhouses, back-to-back townhouses, apartments, and other similar dwellings. There is not a specific prohibition or specific requirement to build any one of those within the high density. And when you're looking at achieving high density, it's the intent and objective of how that gets achieved. This proposal achieves a high density residential form of development, and as I said, in a form that is very appropriate for the area and actually addresses the need for family-sized units. There is a prohibition in the official plan that says, as you will see at sub E, standalone townhomes shall not be permitted adjacent to Dundas Street. We do not believe that this provision applies because what is being proposed are not standalone townhomes. It's a very different model. It's a very different configuration in terms of the development plan. And if we can go to the next slide, I can give some further indication with regards to that. Again, when you look at the various the configuration and the policy language, these units have underground parking, and the back-to-back nature in the site does not allow for the frontage on a street for the majority of the units. So there is frontage on the public street Dundas for the units that face along Dundas Street, but in terms of the depiction, the rest of them don't. They're actually internal to the unit, internal to the street network with the unit inside. Very much like if you were looking at an apartment building, rather than having an interior corridor, this has exterior corridors. The street, the sidewalks, the paths that connect the different buildings are all connected within one complex. So if I could go to the next slide. These are the definitions that exist. There is no definition for stacked townhomes that exists in the official plan. The standalone is not defined, but a townhouse is defined. And a townhouse dwelling means a building or structure that is vertically divided into a minimum of 3 dwelling units, each of which has an independent entrance from grade to the front and rear of the building, and each of which are divided vertically above grade by a common wall adjoining dwelling units or a private garage. So essentially, a townhouse has a pass-through from the front to the rear of the property. Because of the nature of the development being stacked back-to-backs, there is no pass-through from the front of the property to the back of the property. One of the slides, the next slide will actually depict it, but if we can stay on this one first. Sorry, go back to the definitions. In the definition of stacked townhouse dwellings, means a building or structure divided into a minimum of 3 dwelling units, each dwelling unit being separated from the other vertically and or horizontally and each dwelling unit having an entrance shared with no more than 3 other units. So if we go to the next slide, you'll actually see that depiction. When I look at the screen on the left-hand side, you will see what is traditionally a standalone townhouse. That's 1 unit per dwelling, and it's the width of the entire building, an entrance from the front and an entrance to the rear. And very often at the entrance of the rear, you will have a garage at the rear, you may have a garage at the front, or you will have a laneway at the back with a garage. What's proposed on the right-hand side of the picture are the stacked back-to-backs. And in actual fact, what you're seeing is each component is divided into 4 units. There's a unit at the first level that takes the level that goes below grade, partially below grade, and this first full story above grade. And then there's a separate unit for the 2 units above. And then you have that replicated on the other side of the complex. And if we go to the next slide, you'll see that depicted right there. So the units are illustrated. This is showing a portion of what would be a stacked back-to-back. Units A, B, C, and D are all different units. There is no pass-through like on the definition for a townhouse through unit A all the way to the back. They're divided by a horizontal wall, a vertical wall at the back, and they're all separate units. Units A, B, C, and D all have separate entrances to them as well. So as I said, it's more akin to a apartment building form without the wasted space of having a long corridor or hallway, and provides for the high density form of development that the town wishes to see along this corridor. We can go to the next slide. This is a depiction of it through the cross section, and this is how it operates more fairly. As I had indicated to you, in reality, these are 4 stories. In practical operation, these are 4-story units. They measure as 3 units because the lower level, being partially below grade and on top of the parking garage, does not constitute a full story because of the nature of it being partially below grade. But for example, when you're looking at Unit A1 would be those 2 floors entirely. Unit B1, again, those are separate floors. That's a separate unit. And this is a depiction of there would be 4 units, 2 on each side, without a pass-through or connection all the way through. As you say here, the bylaw definition for townhouse is again repeated here, means a building or structure is vertically divided into a minimum of 3 dwelling units, each of which has an independent entrance from grade to the front and rear of the building. In this case, the townhouse definition does not apply, is not applicable, because there is not an independent entrance from grade to the front and rear of the building. Each unit is a separate component and has its own entrance from the front. If we can go to the next slide. Again, this is again with the repetition of the stacked townhouse dwelling that shows with comparison of the visual represented next to it. And again, the stacked townhouse dwelling is applicable, and it is not a sub-definition of townhomes. So in our respectful submission, when the official plan says standalone townhomes are not permitted along Dundas, the representation and the intent is to prevent the previous developments that would have gone along that had that standalone townhouse. If you recall that visual that we had of the 2 types next to each other, one of the more traditional type standalone with a pass-through on Dundas, that is not what the town envisions, and that is not what we are proposing. What we are proposing in the subject minor variance is a form of development that provides for high density within an appropriate space, but also able to provide for independent family-sized, appropriately sized family accommodated units that have access, that are accessible from the main corridor, from the main streets. If I can go to the next slide. Again, this is more of a depiction of the articulation, the type of articulation that is sought across it. And again, we're not looking at one mass consistent wall. We're not looking at anything of that nature. We're looking at something that has architectural features and architectural details that really make these units each individual, and the buildings themselves each individual and distinct. And as I said, it represents 306 units within this configuration of the different building blocks, all which the parking underneath. If you can go to the next slide. Once again, when we're dealing with the issues of official plan conformity, the test for the minor variances, as the committee will be well aware of, does the objective meet the general intent and purpose of the official plan? And in this case, the general intent and purpose of the official plan is to provide a high-density residential form of development in this corridor. This is precisely what it does, and it meets all the definitions. There is a restriction, as we've noted, for the standalone townhomes because that is not intended and that's not defined as being within the high-density core, within the high-density provisions. It doesn't direct high density. So I can understand the town saying, we don't want that identified there, don't want to have that there, but it's not within the high density form of development. This does fit within the high density form of development as it's not a standalone townhouse. When you look at the North Oakville secondary plan, again, it permits at the minimums of 3 stories. That we have achieved. And further, as I've indicated, not only have we achieved that, we actually present in what's more akin to a 4-story development. If you can go next slide. And I'm sorry to rush through and happy to answer any questions that committee may have with regards to this matter, but this goes back to the North Oakville secondary plan in OPA 321. And again, as I said, the intention of the OP is to protect for higher density development. It's not intended to restrict uses only to apartments and mixed-use building types, but to provide for that high-density development and the opportunity for that high-density development to be achieved. The report speaks to having densities that are actually supportive and of transit supportive development, and they talk about a minimum density of being 72 units per gross hectare as being supportive of that transit supportive development. The proposed density is 143 units per hectare, almost twice as much as what the town itself in its official plan has identified as being transit supportive development. This proposal is in full conformity in our respectful submission with the official plan. With regards to the zoning bylaw, the intent of the zoning bylaw, one must remember that this zoning bylaw was a site-specific zoning bylaw that was responsive to a specific application. There is nothing that precludes a minor variance from a site-specific zoning bylaw provisions. And in this case, both the site-specific zoning bylaw and the minor variances seek to provide for a high-density form of development that is appropriate for the site. And that is precisely what these minor variances do. With regards to the desirability of the development, this is a development that is shovel ready. It's essentially shovel ready, ready to go, and it's ready to provide much needed housing, especially much needed housing in the form of family size, family appropriate units. It's an appropriate form of development, and it's a form of development that doesn't give rise to any concerns to the adjacent properties, including the adjacent development to the north that is more that is traditional standalone townhomes. If we can go to the next slide. We have before you some letters of support from the community. Our planner went out and was able to get some of the residents. We weren't able to contact all of them, but I have not seen and I have not heard of any opposition to the development. And in actual fact, it's my submission that the form that's being proposed in being able to provide this level of high density development gives rise to less potential for negative impacts or concerns about impacts than would a 2-story, 12-story building that is currently approved for the subject site. Finally, I think there's another slide. If we go to the next slide. This is, as I said, goes back to shovel-ready unit. And when you've seen pictures in the back, the pictures in the back depict really the configuration of how these units can be structured. And they are examples of the units as they've been constructed elsewhere. Our client is ready to submit the site plan. They're ready to start providing this transit supportive high density development. They're ready to start constructing these 306 units and deliver them to the community. As I've said, they're 3-bedroom units, something that you don't see very often anymore. and you also don't see it in a lot of more of the high-rise form of development. So there's a very important objective that's being achieved by the delivery of these units. The underground parking minimizes in terms of any concerns or impacts by ensuring that all the parking is below grade and not surface oriented. So therefore, not only do you not have that visually from Dundas, but you also don't have the issues and concerns that arise from large surface parking that often is associated with some of the other forms of high density development, at least in parts. The urban built form on Dundas Street, and as I said again, with the regional allocation in place, on the urban build form on Dundas Street, the direction has been and the commitment has been to provide something that is consistent with that view and that objective of that high density residential mixed use type form of development along Dundas Street. If we could go to the next slide. Again, these are just depictions of some of the construction that's take place in this form of this development, which has already been constructed by our clients. And has not only been, I can say, a very successful project for our client, but a successful project for the communities in which they've been built, because they really do help to respond to the need, to the market demand of many who are looking for appropriately family-sized units, especially in terms of entry level, mid-market type level, and this is what is appropriate for the area. So I'm happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
Thank you, Mr. DeMello. The 12-story unit, how many units would it have housed, the two 12-story buildings?
Through you, Madam Chair, I don't have the specific details with regards to that. If it was fully constructed, I believe it would have been more than the 306 units. I'm almost certain of that. I don't have the specific number. Regardless of whether or not what could have been constructed, in reality is that the two 12-story towers are not being constructed. So the issue in terms of saying, what we have brought more units potentially on the site? That may have been a possibility had that development proceeded, but that development is no longer proceeding. There's no interest, there's no market. It's not a lack of interest or desire on the part of my clients to deliver that. My clients would deliver the housing that's required and the housing that meets the market. But that project is not something that can proceed. So they're looking at what is appropriate for the site and what still helps deliver that high density objective.
So why is that project not deliverable?
Oh, sorry, Madam Chair. I actually go back and part of the convenience of this is I just received a text message from my client confirming the number, and I'm sorry, that number was actually 294. This actually delivers more housing than in the previous approval. I'm sorry about that. I didn't have that number at hand.
No, that's fine. You're saying that project could not be delivered. Why is that?
For a host of reasons, mostly in terms of economic reasons, that really the market doesn't take up for that. However, there is a market and there is a demand for family-sized units. A lot of the units that otherwise would be constructed in, for example, a tower really aren't the family-sized units. So this actually provides for more opportunity for more housing in a lower scale form in terms of the height of the units, but provides for that density, provides more opportunity for more housing in terms of greater number of units, and also it provides for more efficient use of the land, and also provides for, as I said, all of these are 3-bedroom family-sized units as compared to what traditionally you get in the tower structure.
Okay, it's easy to say 3 bedrooms, but we're talking 3 bedrooms, typical size. What's that?
Oh, I don't have that information in terms of typical size. Maybe I'll get a message from them. But
okay, maybe you will.
But I will say this in response to the question, Madam
Because
Chair.
I saw one of those pictures. That was like a folded up kind of bed that comes from the wall. So,
and I can say this, Madam Chair. That may be the case, but there is no and I've dealt with this for the town in the past in terms of, for example, on its development charge issues. There's a minimum size requirement for a bedroom. These all meet the minimum size requirements for bedrooms.
Okay.
And you can have, and if I
Go
could
ahead.
just add one more thing, in terms of, you'll see a lot of developments that are proceeding, which, for example, they might have a unit saying structurally the unit is like 650 square feet and my 2 bedrooms. The definitions of bedrooms are very different. The definitions of bedroom provide you got to have a window, building code requirements, other issues like that. These are all functional bedrooms. There's nothing here that, for example, that these bedrooms would, for example, be less functional than if they were constructed in 2 12-story towers.
Okay. And have you engaged with the town enough to meet in a middle ground? Because the town is not obviously supportive of this.
We have, Madam Chair. I can tell you my clients have engaged with the town. They've had discussions with the town. I can say, from my understanding, I think I understand the town's concern in saying there is this official plan provision that talks about no standalone townhomes, and I understand they don't want the standalone townhomes. However, I think this is very different. One of the things that was actually discussed and talked about is trying to see if these could actually fit within the definition of being apartments. However, for them to be apartments, they would have to have a common hallway that serves the units. That takes up space in the units themselves. It's not an efficient way to deliver, but they essentially operate as apartments. They technically don't have one because of the apartments, but they do operate as apartments. So in terms of how they present themselves as essentially 3 to 4 story appearance type buildings that operate as apartments without a common hallway in between them, without a common hallway between the units separating. If you're looking, I would respectfully submit that if you're a family looking for a unit that's more appropriate for your family, rather than having to go through an apartment and a hallway, if there's an ability for you to have access to your unit directly from the street or from the public street or from the private street behind you, and it's part of your complex, that's more desirable.
Okay, thank you. I have a question for Mr. Thun. In terms of the height requirement, because the minimum, as we've read it, I mean, clarify it for me because I might be wrong. It should be 5 stories and more.
That is correct as part of the zoning bylaw, Madam Chair.
So is that what would you say that given the explanation that Mr. DeMello has put before us today in terms of the density, the requirements per hectare in terms of the units that are provided, would that be the single standing sore point right now for this development?
Through you, Madam Chair, the point that we're getting at through the comments proposed or comments submitted to the committee is that there's a locational criteria for development of that site. We do recognize that there are stacked townhouses on the site. We're looking at a different built form along the edges of the pond and of Dundas Street. And in particular, Dundas Street, where that one policy E, as Mr. DeMello has taken you to, says that we don't want the townhouses along Dundas Street. There is a zoning bylaw that talks about apartments. There's a site plan that's talking about apartments. We've also had a pre-consultation meeting in advance of this submission of a C of A, and we laid out our concerns, and the concerns is the built form townhouses along Dundas Street. This block does already have that built form. We're looking for an additional built form, and that's what was in the approved zoning for the site. And that site, that approved zoning went all the way up to 16 stories in locational issues or locational matters. So we're not looking for townhouses along Dundas. We're looking for the apartment form, 5-story minimums. And we believe that the proposal that's being put forward right now is more of an OPA and a zoning bylaw amendment perspective as opposed to a minor variance.
And that's a valid point. And then along that edge, you're looking for more of a mixed use where you would have other uses on
We were,
within.
through you, Madam Chair, we were looking for the entire development of the site to have a mix of uses. That's why you have a block A, a block B, and a block C.
Okay. All right. I'll pass it on. I've monopolized the questioning. I'm gonna pass it over to Mr. Dickey and Ms. Price. Do you have any questions of Mr. DeMello or Mr. Thun as the planner?
Yes, thank you, Madam
Go
Chair.
ahead. Go ahead, Mr. Dickey.
Let's go to the consultant. Oh, hold it. Well, maybe I should ask the planner, the town planner, sorry. My question is, when the zoning bylaw for North Oakville was written, were back-to-back stacked townhouses, had they become a common thing? Or I know in the last 10 or 15 years they become common, but I'm just wondering if the original official plan and zoning bylaw recognized stacked townhouses as a possibility back in the day.
The Dundas Urban Core, if I will just clarify that. I will go to the zoning bylaw. And for the Dundas Urban Core, what was originally envisioned through the zoning? Mixed-use buildings, apartments, office buildings, hotel, institutional buildings, parking garages, and commercial residential buildings. Those were the building types. So the stacked townhouse wasn't there in the zoning bylaw. It was added into the site-specific zoning as part of the process that was undertaken as part of the zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of subdivision that were before the OLT.
So I'll ask you, just continue on with another question on another. So if I heard your comment that it might be more appropriate to go through a rezoning as opposed to a committee of adjustment situation in this matter. If they were to go through if we were to give approval, does that change anything? Like, do they still need noise studies and all the other studies? Or does that also skip them? They don't have to provide those types of studies?
No, the existing site plan application would have to be withdrawn. A new site plan application will have to be submitted. The various supporting studies would be addressed through a pre-consultation meeting.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, of which one would be a noise, right?
Yeah, okay, I just didn't know.
Okay, and as I had mentioned, we did go through a pre-consultation meeting and we did raise the same concerns that I've raised in the staff report to the committee.
Okay. And when the agent mentioned about these densities, this transit supportive density is a minimum of 72 units per gross hectare, and they're building 173 units per hectare. Do you have any comments on that, or are those numbers reasonably accurate to you, or you have a comment on that?
I don't know the accuracy of those numbers. I will take Mr. DeMello at his word. However, we're looking at a built form perspective here. Okay, it is a locational criteria that was established through OPA 321 that said basically no townhouses along Dundas Street. That's a principle. So that's why there are townhouses interior to the block.
Can I just, can I add to that? I'm going to add a question, not question, but the concept, why they're saying, then correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sorry, I should say it this way. Correct me if I'm wrong. The reason the OP wanted to say, or said no townhouses on Dundas Street is to support it, to be transit supportive.
Yes.
Or it wasn't a visual thing?
That is one of the criteria, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Just a second, think of everything. And again, there's no definition of standalone in any of the, shall we say, legal documents of the town where the agent has brought out that aspect of standalone might not be a back-to-back or standalone might not be a stacked. I could see that. To me, I wonder if a standalone is a back-to-back townhouse, and I'm just wondering if the town has any definitions in any of their documents that would point out that no, a standalone either yes or doesn't include back-to-back.
There's no definition to the term standalone, but if you look at that development overall, it is a standalone townhouse development.
Okay, thank you.
But they function as a condominium almost, right? The way that they've been presented. I wonder if they had gone another couple of stories higher, if that would have been the correct build form that you would accept.
Is that a question to me, Madam Chair?
Yeah, sorry.
Through the pre-consultation meetings, we had discussed the ideas of how this could be an apartment form to meet the apartment, and they were to go look at that. I have not seen anything submitted in response to that. First I heard is that this is coming back to what was originally proposed, and it is a ground-related type of development. It is not a typical high-rise type of development. That's 5 stories. 5 stories, you would need corridors. You need different ways of access to your units.
Oh, okay. So there are different regulations to that as well. Okay. See, I'm not comfortable with the workaround. I mean, I am swayed. I have to say this to you, Mr. DeMello. I am swayed by your presentation, the number of units, the hectares. But again, these are all technicalities that you're putting before the committee versus going through a zoning amendment or working with the town a little further. You're putting it in our laps and asking us to make a judgment call about it. And I don't think that's fair either. In terms of development.
If I could respond to that, Madam Chair, and as well respond to some of the other comments that were raised by Mr. Thun. First of all, Madam Chair, this is not a situation where we're putting anything in the lap. We're putting an application before, in accordance with the Planning Act process that this province has established, and allows for minor variance applications like this to be brought. The test that you have to address when you deal with any minor variance application are the 4-fold tests that are provided for under Section 45(1). And that is, do they meet the general intent and purpose of the official plan, the zoning, desirable and appropriate for the development? Those are decisions that this committee makes all the time on the nature of applications. This is an application that provides for that high density form of development. When Mr. Thun makes the comments about the apartments being 5 stories or more, that is a technical requirement to meet the definitions of apartment. The common hallway, as I said, is also a technical definition to meet the requirements of an apartment. But having these common hallways actually takes away from the usable living space of the units. And you had asked an earlier question. I don't have the answer with regards to the bedrooms, but I can tell you each one of these units is 1,200 square feet in measurement. You don't get 1,200 square foot apartment units, condominium units, and you're providing this in a high density form. With regards to the height, where Mr. Thun suggested that the 5 stories was the minimum, that's what's defined in the site-specific zoning bylaw, not the official plan. The official plan talks about minimum 3-story heights. We actually do provide minimum 3-story heights, and in actual fact, as I said, more akin to 4-story heights. The only reason is the first story is partially below grade, so it doesn't constitute. So in terms of providing transit supportive development, and I appreciate Mr. Thun taking my calculations and numbers at face value. I'm doing the same thing, assuming that they are accurate. We're providing that density. We're exceeding that density in a proposal that doesn't impose a higher built form. And there's no requirement, for example, to limit it. When I took you to the official plan and it says it's compliant, stacked townhomes are a permitted form. There is no restriction. It says you can only do under the official plan apartments, mid-rise or high-rise buildings, anything above 5 stories. Had that been the case, the official plan would have said so. Instead, what it says, your minimum height are 3 stories. We achieved that. The variance that we're asking is not a change in the official plan. The variance that we're asking for is a change in the site-specific zoning. And that change still ends up allowing us to deliver high-density development in, I'd say, a more appropriate form for the subject site. In terms of the idea that there is no definition, and Mr. Thun is correct, as I've noted it, there's no definition of standalone townhomes. So he can't say, respectfully, he can't say that the OP restricts and doesn't allow townhomes under the Dundas core. That's not the case. The OP actually allows townhomes on the Dundas core. You have them along the Dundas core. You actually have this built form being proposed in other locations along the Dundas core. So this is actually permitted under the official plan. When the site-specific zoning was developed, it was developed in response to a specific application. So unfortunately, in my view, what's happening is you're reading it from a site-specific development application. The town is reading it, Mr. Thun is reading it from a perspective of what's the intent of a site-specific development application that is not proceeding, when you should be reading it from the intent and objective of what's the intention and the objective of the official plan, what's the intent and the objective of the zoning, and that is to provide that high-density form. We actually achieve that delivery under both regards and achieve it in compliance with the official plan. The only, and I understand the provision against standalone townhomes because that detracts away from providing for that high-density transit supportive development. As Mr. Thun responded to Member Dickey's question, one of the reasons why you have the standalone as being a restriction is because it's not necessarily transit supportive. And the idea was to have transit supportive development along this core. That's precisely what is being done.
Okay. Any other questions? Go ahead, Ms. Price.
Will there, the way what you're asking for these stacked townhouses, are there going to be more streets involved now that you're having more, rather than having higher units? Are there going to be, is it going to be more of a street, several more laneways or streets?
If you go to the site plan proposed, there's internal configuration of private streets and condominium streets that service the units that provide direct access, but it's not necessarily for vehicles because the vehicles are all parking underneath. It's access for the units. There's some surface parking on the surface. Much of that is the way that the units themselves are connected, pedestrian friendly, because that provides the access for the pedestrians, for the visitors and the unit owners with regards to that. As I said, it's more of a depiction. If you look at it, this is really a representation of an apartment that's put on its side. And these roads that continue, the pathways, are the internal network that connect, otherwise would have been the internal hallways. This provides for more larger units than you would otherwise have in another configuration, and it does it in a shorter form.
Okay. What about in terms of setbacks from Dundas Street?
They meet all the requirements. There's no variances sought with regards to that. We meet all the requirements. There are variances that are sought with regards to setbacks to individual units, but from Dundas, there's not a variant. There's not variances required with regards to that.
Okay.
I have a question for Mr. Thun. Would this proposal have a negative impact on servicing? Like we are talking garbage and road services and all of that?
No, through you, Madam Chair, the functionality of the site, be it apartments, townhouses, and whatnot, still would need to be addressed. But from a garbage perspective, garbage would be picked up as normally would be.
Okay. So just because the units are broken up versus in a high rise, that doesn't entail any problems or
An
access.
an apartment building would have a garbage area for pickup. Similarly, there would be a garbage pickup area for townhouses.
Okay. Anything further? Has anyone called with interest for this application, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
No, Madam Chair, there have been no calls and no one has their hand up.
Okay, thank you. All right. Who would like to make a motion and start the discussion? Go ahead, Mr. Dickey.
I wasn't sure if Mrs. Price had a question or she was
Oh, did you have
volunteering on the
another
motion.
question?
I'll do the
I
motion.
don't see I don't see unless you wave your hand sometimes.
Oh,
So
I
just
see.
Mm-hmm.
wave.
Yes, actually, I just wanted to ask
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Thun if there's any stacked townhouses on Dundas Street and other developments. Or is this unique to the spot, or is it common?
Mr. Thun, I think
Chair,
that's for you.
Madam
Yes.
Price, are you asking me that question?
Yes, I'm asking you.
Sorry. To my knowledge, driving along Dundas Street, I don't remember there being any stacked townhouse developments. I do see low-rise apartments or towards the east. There are a lot of vacant lands within the Dundas urban core that are vacant right now that still need to be developed. This OPA 321 provision would still have to be adhered to. However, this application does have, I'll call it precedent-setting nature. Yeah. If we were allowed here, would we allow it someplace else?
If I could respond to that comment. Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. DeMello.
Yeah, I often hear that comment, and I do a lot of work for not just developers, but municipalities. And as the committee is aware, all applications have to be assessed on their own merits and their own values. You don't look at what happens across the street or necessarily next door to say, I should do the same. You have to justify the rationale if you're looking at a change. And in terms of a precedent value, if you can deliver transit supportive development in a form that provides for family supported units in this manner and in this form that doesn't give rise to impacts, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with someone else pointing to that as an example of being appropriate? They would still have to justify it, so it's not an automatic.
Thank you for your comment. Mr. Sun, between 6th Line and Trafalgar, there is a development that's separated from Dundas by a artificial pond, I think, because that was part of the development. Is that development considered a stacked townhome? They do look like apartments, but are they apartments or are they considered stacked townhomes?
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I'm trying to understand the location on that one.
Yeah, like north of Dundas, and it's somewhere between 6th, because I know that's where the old fire houses or the churches, and Trafalgar. It's somewhere there. And then there's a pond. I remember that there's a pond separating them.
They're right beside the creek that's there?
Might be. I don't know all the streets there, but I remember driving by there and looking and seeing those. They look like townhomes, but they're higher.
If we're thinking about the area of sort of Oakville, Oak Park area,
yeah,
I think they're going to be apartments as opposed to stacked townhouses. I stand to be corrected, but
they're very boxy. They look very boxy, kind of like what these look like.
Okay. The pond is just on the east side of Postville Street. I believe, I wasn't part of that and I have not walked into those buildings, but I believe they're apartments.
Okay.
Madam Madam Chair, maybe if I could help.
Okay.
I think I know. Sorry, Mr. Thun, I don't mean to take
No,
away
no,
from that.
Mr. DeMello.
But I think I know the development you're talking about, and I'm trying to find it in terms of that. Um, that's that's a different development. That is further back. That has, for example, some commercial units at grade and units above it, and it's
Okay.
behind that plaza. And I know know which one you're talking about in terms of the massing and configuration. In many ways, it's similar. And maybe if I could just, I don't know if I can share the screen. I can pull it up, and maybe this helps in
No,
terms of
we're unable to
you're
share our
unable to.
screen.
Okay,
Yeah, it has
okay,
to come down from the town itself.
yeah. I think it's on
Okay.
Preserve Road,
Yeah, it's
Preserve
very close
Drive.
to there. I
Yeah,
remember that area very well. It's very close from there. I just don't
yeah,
know all the streets
yeah.
off the back of my hand. Um, okay. If there are no further questions, and I am looking at the screen now, can we take the matter into committee and move a motion? Okay. So go ahead. Who wants to go? Mr. Dickey, you want to give it a go? Go ahead. Let's see if our
Thank you,
thoughts
Madam
all
Chair.
align. Go ahead.
When I first looked at this, I was okay with it. And then when I read the town's planning department and brought forth the issue of transit supportive, I started to think differently. Now I see a little bit more of an understanding. I think to me, what I read, and if I'm reading it wrong, I'm sorry, but I understand the town wants a transit supportive development along Dundas. When I drove along Dundas, just like the chairperson had said, there's large stormwater ponds along the north side of Dundas. There's retail at, I don't know if it's Nagawa, and it isn't Sixth Line. No, it must be Nagawa and Dundas. Obviously, there's stuff on the south side of Dundas that's developed and has been with the mostly detached houses. So not to say that that could be destroyed or anything like that, but I do understand the transit supportive aspect. But what was interesting, as was pointed out, this development is higher in density than what is called transit supportive density. So that's a thing that to me is saying, okay, it is transit supported. My point in some of the discussions was back-to-back stacked townhouses has become a relatively new within, I don't know, the last 5, 6, 10 years or whatever. And I look at them as they're not townhouses in the normal sense, which are lower in density. They're not, walk or low-rise apartments. I actually family orientated as was. I agree with what the agent said that they're more family orientated. They're larger in size than apartments in an apartment building as a general rule. So for all those reasons, I'm thinking yes. The only thing I was thinking no about was the transit supportive aspect, but I have not been convinced that that is the difference is minor. We've got what effectively is a 4-story building. I know you call it 3.5 or 3. It's effectively a 4-story building where the zoning bylaw, the minimum was 5 stories. So it's only a minor, it's only a minor difference between 4 stories of residential and 5 stories. So anyways, to end that all up, I make a motion for approval. I feel that this development has complies with the 4 tests of the Planning Act. And I never thought about this. Sorry, about the conditions. Just a minute.
Yeah.
We'll have to look up the plans. But
Mr. Thun, do you care to provide conditions, like if this does go through, what kind of conditions other than the standard approval expires within the 2 years of date of decision if a building permit has not been achieved, but in terms of the submitted site plan and elevations, like where are we at with all of this? You're on mute.
Apologies, Madam Chair. The first I saw with this was the pre-con, and then the second time I saw this was through the minor variance application. I have not given any thought to conditions of approval to this. So I'm a little bit taken back by that, considering I have proposed it to be negative. I'm caught a little bit off guard here.
Yeah. How about we leave it to the satisfaction of the director of planning, because then that gives them more autonomy to discuss, and we're not tying ourselves to anything that is not in front of us 100% concrete. Mr. Dickey, what do you think?
Yes, I agree with that. We don't have elevation plans. We don't have floor plans. We
This
don't.
is a simple
the
idea,
site,
and
yeah, the site plan doesn't seem to be detailed enough to normal standards. So the basic concept is if we approve this, we're approving the variances as they stand, and the developer and the town will work out the details, allowing what effectively is back-to-back stacked townhouses. And then I guess the only other condition, the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if building permits have not been issued for the proposed construction.
Yeah.
Does our secretary treasurer have? We didn't actually create what the wording for the first condition would be something to the fact that the back-to-back townhouses be constructed in general accordance with site plans and elevation drawings
just
to the
so that
satisfaction of.
Yeah, I would say like that the dwelling, or that the proposed construction be in general accordance. No, hold on.
If I can assist, Madam Chair, in this regard, and I don't mean to interrupt, and I'm just trying to be helpful. Because there is as Mr. Thun has indicated, there's going to be a site plan approval process that's going to come forward. That site plan is going to provide the details, more details than the convictions drawn. So any construction is going to have to conform with that site plan.
Okay.
And that process is going to undertake as a separate process with the town.
Okay, you know what, that was not really on my radar, to be honest with you. So why? Usually the site plan goes through, and then you come before us for a variance, correct?
No, that's not true. There's no requirement to go through a site plan first. And in fact, site plan approval on a lot of developments has been taken away. Site plan would still be subject to this development. And we're ready to proceed with the site plan, but site plan can't change the zoning. So we need to have the zoning in place first before we can go with a site plan application. So that's why the site plan is not before you. Very often what will happen is you may go through the site plan and realize that something needs to change in the zoning, something like a setback in one area to make something fit, and we go back to the committee, but you can't have an approved site plan until you have zoning in place. Okay. And I see Mr. Thun is nodding his head in acknowledgement and agreement.
Okay. Oh, well, we're just going to word it in that it goes to the satisfaction of the director of planning, and then we'll leave it before them. Mr. Dickey, do you still need help?
How may I read off what I've written down here, what the gist of it for the sake of the Secretary Treasurer, and so that the back-to-back stacked townhouses be constructed in general accordance with site plans and elevation drawings to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning.
Okay, yeah, that's fine with me. Is that okay with you, Ms. Price?
Yes.
Okay, it's fine.
I'm not so sure.
If I just may, Madam Chair, just I'm always hesitant and concerned about something saying to the satisfaction of Director of Planning, because that's not a condition that I can necessarily satisfy as part of the zoning. I'm not sure that this is one that requires conditions because you are going through a site plan process and that site plan is going to define. I have no objection, no problem to the condition that it lapses if construction hasn't commenced in 2 years, your standard condition with regard to that. But because the site plan is going to follow separately, and that is entirely a process that's in the hands of the municipality, and us working with the municipality, you're eventually going to get to a site plan that works for this development to proceed, and that site plan will go through the separate process. To have as a condition to satisfaction of Director of Planning, I'm concerned, and not that I'm saying the Director of Planning would do this, but someone say, well, I'm not satisfied with it. So I'm not going to release
But
the
you
condition
know
or
what?
something.
I appreciate your concern, but that is very typical of the way we've done things in the past. And I understand from you're trying to get at it from a legal point of view, but we have no elevation plans. We have nothing before us. So the only thing I can say is that, or take a deferral and
No,
go, you know.
then we're fine with. Can I just suggest that what it can be is that that they be substantially constructed in accordance with site plan approval to be obtained. And then that way it leaves it to the working with the municipality and satisfy the condition, because that's what if I can put it, that's what I think you're really trying to ensure, that it gets built in accordance with an approved set of drawings that have gone through the city, and that's going to be in the site plan. So the zoning will provide the framework for the site plan. The site plan process will determine things like where configuration, surface parking, all that's going to be, and that's going to have to be built because that's the way it's provided. So it's actually indicating as a condition is you can have your zoning, the zonings are going to be in place, and that ultimately construction is going to proceed in accordance with site plan approval that's going to be obtained through the municipal process.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine with me. Mr. Thun, do you have a comment on that? You're muted.
Sorry, Madam Chair. Well, you're saying substantially constructed in accordance with the approved site plan? Is that where you're going?
That's the.
If that's the will of the committee, then that's the condition you can put down.
Okay. You have any comment on that? Usually
I have no comment on that.
Okay. Mr. Dickey, are you okay with that?
Yeah, should I word it? I mean, I'll read it again and see how. So that the back-to-back stacked townhouses be constructed
in accordance with the approved site plan.
Will be that is to be obtained. That was the
yes.
This site plan approval obtained in the future.
Yeah.
Okay, I agree with that. I mean, yes, that's my motion, my condition.
Okay.
I
Bryce, you have a comment?
I'm going to deny that. I'm sorry, but I'm going to deny the application.
Okay, that's fine. All right, let's take a vote. The motion before us is, and I have to wrap my mind out because I have to state it on record. The motion before us is to approve the application that is before us and allow the stacked townhomes to proceed according to the site plan to be approved, and that the decision, you've already stated the second one is that the approval expires within 2 years from the date of decision, building permit has not been issued, or the proposed construction, correct? All right, so those are our two conditions. All those in support? Okay. All those opposed? Okay, the application has been denied. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes, I am. Yes. That was 162. We have to move 163 as well. We have to move them separately. So I'm assuming that because we've heard them together, that they're the same, you have the same thought process, Mr. Dickey, right?
Yes.
So
So I'll make
do
a
you want
motion, go through the same steps, and then we go through the denial side?
yes.
Okay, so.
So this is for 163, application 163 of 2025.
Okay. So I make a motion for approval, subject to the condition, the same condition as we had before, and also the same condition about approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit is not conditioned for proposed construction.
Yeah. All right, and so the motion is to approve application 163 of 2025 with the red conditions on hand. All those in support? Okay, and all those opposed? Okay, the application has been denied.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the
Thank
committee.
you. Have a good night.
Yes, happy holidays to you, and thank you for hearing me.
You as well. You as well.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee.
Have a good night. Okay. We have to bring Mr. Talowski back. Did you have a nice cup of tea, Mr. Talowski?
Thought you gave me a game misconduct there.
Okay, application 164 of 2025 at 1440 Lancaster Drive. That's the application that's next on our agenda. Again, application 164 of 2025 at 1440 Lancaster Drive. And I have Arlene Beaumont as our agent.
That's correct. Thank you, Madam Chair. Arlene Beaumont, Outram and Associates. Our office address is 2140 Winston Park Drive, Suite 26 in Oakville. We are the agents for the owners of 1440 Lancaster Drive. It's a very simple application, and I have a very brief presentation. Thank you for putting the presentation up. Could we have the next slide, please? So this is an aerial photo of the subject property. It's located at the southeast corner of Lancaster Drive and Jefferson Crescent, right on the corner. Next slide, please. So this is the existing dwelling. I'd say it's about 40 to 50 years old, and the same family has owned this property for several decades. Next slide, please. So the current owner is proposing to construct an exterior stairwell to a below-grade entrance in the flankage yard. The zoning bylaw requires a minimum 3.5 meter flankage yard setback. The current setback is 4.30 meters. However, if the exterior stairwell is constructed, the proposed flankage yard would be 2.976 meters, which works out to a 0.524 encroachment into the flankage yard. And of course, no encroachment of an exterior stairwell is permitted in a flankage yard. So that is the variance that we're requesting today. Next slide, please. This is the site plan. You can see the exterior stairwell on the left-hand side of the drawing. The front of the stairwell will be flush with the front of the porch, so it'll be a nice, neat line there. Next slide, please. So this is what the stairwell will look like from the front of the property. And next slide, please. This is the view from the exterior side yard. It's a glass railing around, which I think is a good choice because it will be subtle and not a prominent feature. You'll be able to see through that glass railing. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Beaumont. Any questions or items of clarifications of Ms. Beaumont at this time? Okay, I see none. Has anyone called with interest for this application, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
No, Madam Chair, there have been no calls and no one has their hand up.
Okay, thank you. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Toloski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'll move this application be approved as applied for, finding that it meets the four tests of the Planning Act. Despite this being a flankage yard encroachment, this will not be highly visible from the street. There's a significant flankage yard remaining, a significant boulevard on top of that. I don't believe there'll be any impact from this addition of the staircase. I would note that there is no objection from the community, and I would make the approval subject to the staircase proceeding in general accordance with the site plan and elevations dated November 4th, 2025, and that the approval expires within 2 years if the building permit hasn't been issued.
Okay, thank you. Is there discussion on this recommendation? Seeing none, all those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay, application 167 of 2025 at 372 Wildwood Drive. Again, that's application 167 of 2025 at 372 Wildwood Drive. I have Mr. Ted Loxton here as the agent.
Sorry, just trying to fight with the buttons on my computer to make it work. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Loxton.
Okay. I submitted a presentation. I don't see it on the screen. I'm not sure if
I'm
it's
sure Town is working on it.
there we are. Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, good evening. As I said, I'm Harrison Loxton from Bayview Design Group in Sarnia, Ontario. 1808 London Line in Sarnia, representing the Anand family in this minor variance. And so I've read staff's report, and I guess would like to respectfully debate, I guess, a few of the points that they made. So the first slide here is a rendering of the proposed build. Staff speaks about the lack of step backs in the proposed build. The two-story space closest to the adjacent property, I guess the close property, if you will, it has a step back design, as you can see on the above the garage doors in the rendering there. The higher side, the full length two-story wall. I positioned that adjacent to the properties that front onto Morden Road. So those adjacent properties have setbacks of 7.96 meters, so 26 feet plus. Then I'm proposing a 1.7 meter side yard setback from our property. Giving us 9.66 meters or 31.5 feet from the closest neighboring house on the west side. So if you could go to the next slide, please. Okay, so on my site plan, you can see, the darker orange color represents the upper floor and sort of the step design that I was looking for. I guess I should mention as well the adjacent properties that front onto Morden Road. That's a rear yard setback, so they'll always have a setback similar to the 30 feet or even if they're in a rebuilt condition. We did look at placing windows strategically to maintain privacy to both neighbors. And if you go to the next slide, please. So there's essentially the step back design that I was again referring to. If we can go to the next slide. Uh, so the staff report also speaks to the massing of the proposed build. Uh, the top picture there is 378 Wildwood Drive, so directly adjacent to our property. I know that there's no variance that was required on that build, but if we can go to the next slide. Okay, this illustrates sort of the massing in elevation between I guess, the three properties, one on each side of what we're looking for. Uh, so I realize I didn't have access to the drawings of 378 Wildwood, so that was as close as I could make it based on the a few loose measurements and the survey of our property. Okay, if we can go to the next slide, please. So there's the main floor and upper floor of our plans that show the step back design. Again, with the step back, in my opinion, going towards the close property being the step back design. And if we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so my client did speak to the neighbors with the green dots there. Each one of the neighbors were very receptive to the proposal. He didn't have any objections from them. And to the best of my knowledge, there's been no negative correspondence or from the public or neighboring properties. That combined with the fact that the notice has been posted, and again, didn't get any negative correspondence, at least to my knowledge. I respectfully ask that the committee goes against the staff's recommendations and grants the minor variance. And I'm more than willing to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Loxton. Have you had an opportunity to converse with town staff regarding your proposal?
No, I haven't.
So why not? Like, why didn't you, put in for a pre-consultation or take the deferral? Because your proposal is, I mean, not that far off from what is expected.
I guess with respectfully, I just thought that we could discuss the points here and come to an agreement on it, hopefully anyway.
Okay, and you're aware of the site alteration permit and all the other requirements that they mentioned in their staff report that
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Okay. Any questions of Mr. Loxton? None? Okay. Has anyone called with interest for this application, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
No, Madam Chair, there have been no calls and no one has their hand up.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Dickey?
I just have a question for the town planner. My notes, they were concerned about a two-story element. And maybe it was not on the front wall, but I just wanted to know what that was. I guess I was just looking at the front wall and I don't see it. So that's the town planner had made that comment. The two-story architectural feature, which wall was it on and what is the front wall?
Yep.
So through you, Chair, to Member Dickey, the two-story built form element that is adjacent to the lower one-story dwellings is on the, so if you're standing on the street, it's on the left-hand side of the dwelling when you're looking at it. That is a full two-story wall for the entirety of the building. And it's adjacent to those two one-story properties.
Oh, it's just the wall itself. Okay.
You're talking about
It's not
the
like a
one with the
two-story
big
column or
window.
anything like that. Okay.
Because
Okay, I
as
see what
Mr.
he's talking
Loxton
about.
has pointed out, they have, step backs and articulations on the right-hand side of the dwelling.
Okay, thank you.
And can I speak to that as well as that?
Hold on one second, Mr. Austin.
Sure.
So that's the part of the I've lost the word for it now. In the picture, that's the part with the full windows, right? Yeah.
No. Oh.
No,
Oh.
I think what you're referring to is the side closest to the what would that be, the east side or the left side there, and that's where the neighboring properties. It's actually that wall is adjacent to the rear yard of the other properties. I believe that is uh, that is the wall that the planner was referring to, and please correct me if I'm wrong.
That was my understanding.
Through you, Chair, no correction necessary. Mr. Loxton has identified that correctly. The comments speak to the transition and the absence of the transition built forms to those properties.
And again, that was just done, I guess, because we have that almost 10-meter setback to the neighboring properties. It seemed more appropriate to to give that the volume there as opposed to the other side.
Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Talowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, question for staff. I'm struggling a little bit with the concern on the property to the west. You've got the exact same situation, a straight two-story wall, no articulation, that was granted built as of right. And the concern here seems to be the side yard on the east side, but you've got a side yard to side yard scenario with one small window and a large setback on the house to the east. So if you could just help me a little bit with why there is such a concern when you've got the exact same situation on one side and a side yard to side yard scenario that we've been looking at here.
Right, through Chair. So the building to the west of this property, so the dwelling, the two-story dwelling that was built as of right, we didn't provide comments on that. That didn't come through the C of A. So that was not subject to urban design guidelines for stable residential communities. It did not need to meet 1119 of the official plan. This proposal is subject to comment and is subject to the policies of 1119 and is subject to the urban design guidelines for stable residential communities. Within the urban design guidelines for stable residential communities, when you are adjacent to existing one-story dwellings, you will incorporate, or it's encouraged that you incorporate transitional built form elements that help to transition two-story built forms into those adjacent one-story dwellings and those lower built forms. And that's the crux of the comment there, is that, those haven't been mitigated. Those transitions in built form haven't been provided. And as Mr. Loxton pointed out, it's in the rear yards. The rear yards are also the private amenity area for those dwellings, right? So understanding he's relying on spatial separation, but our urban design guidelines for stable residential communities are quite clear when it comes to incorporating transitional elements to neighboring and adjacent one-story or lower story dwellings.
Thank you. It's helpful.
Mr. Loxton?
And if I can just comment further on that to Mr. Chalowski's point, and that was very specific placement of the windows was to sort of help with that privacy of the backyard. In fact, that window that's there is in an ensuite bathroom, so in all likelihood, we would have blinds or some sort of shade there anyway. So it would be a very private backyard. It would still be maintained.
Okay. Anything else? Has anyone called with interest for this application? I'm Secretary Treasurer.
No, Madam Chair, there have been no calls and no one has their hand up.
Okay, let's take a motion then. Who would like to move one? Go ahead, Mr. Dick.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Having regard to my site visit, the agent's presentation, the site plan and elevation drawings, and together with the comments by the planning department, I still feel that the property or the proposal meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act, and I put forth a motion to approve. Subject to the conditions that here we go again. Subject to
but this time you have actual plans that you can do.
I hadn't been prepared for it.
And dates.
I should have been looking ahead. So obviously subject to the second condition that approval expire 2 years from the date of the decision of a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction. And the first condition will be that the proposed construction be constructed in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings dated. Just give me a second here. Oh, I don't see a date on that one. Oh, I see elevation drawings dated October 30th, 2025. Let me just see if the site plan is the same date. Oh, there's the site plan. Yes, yeah, site plan is the same date, October 30th, 2025.
Okay. All those in support? Okay. All those opposed? All right, the application has been approved. 1 opposed.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, have a good evening.
You too, thanks.
Application 89 of 2025 deferred from July the 9th of 2025 at 158 Charles Bray Crescent. Again, it's application 089 of 2025 at 158 Charles Bray Crescent. I have Sarah Clark as the agent.
Yes. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
Good evening.
Sarah Clark here with Blenchnar and Associates office. Our office is located at 10 Kingsbridge Garden Circle, Suite 700 in the city of Mississauga. I'm here on behalf of McKeith South Shore Development, Inc., owner of the lands municipally addressed as 158 Charles Bray Crescent, subject to application A089-2025. Thank you for pulling up the presentation so promptly. So the committee might recognize the presentation, a little bit about this site, as it was a previously deferred application from a July 2025 agenda. In order to more accurately sort of hone in on and identify a single requested variance. To provide a little bit of context and for total clarity, the first time that this application was before the committee, we had actually applied for a total of 2 variances for the one lot, which would have provided flexibility for the total gross floor area to be either dedicated to the livable residential gross floor area or a enlarged garage floor area, both of which are regulated by the applicable bylaw in this instance. The staff report associated with that original application recommended that a deferral be requested so that the application can more accurately identify which of the 2 variances would be needed. So the owners opted to agree with staff on that and requested a deferral to allow them for more time to confirm which of the 2 variances was most desirable. Since that time, the owner has confirmed that they will be proceeding with designing the home at 158 Charles Bray with the increased residential floor area rather than the increased garage floor area. I'll explain a little bit more on that, but I'll keep my presentation as brief as possible for the committee this evening. Next slide, please. So generally speaking, the site is located on the south side of Nautical Boulevard and east of Allison Crescent. What you're seeing before you is a larger site than that which I'm speaking about today. But this is an aerial context image of the location of the greater subdivision, which is registered, and this is where Lot 5 or 158 Charles Bray Crescent is situated. Next slide, please. So this is a little zoom in on the actual registered subdivision and how the lots were created, and the location of the block specific to this minor variance application, which is outlined in yellow. This is just provided for a little bit of context tonight. Next slide, please. So the site is zoned RL6-296. Special exception zone is really just related to permission for a school use on the site. So for all intents and purposes, the site can be considered subject to the parent RL6 zone with no additional specified performance or regulation standards beyond those in the RL6 parent. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned on the outset, the purpose of the minor variance is to obtain permission for additional residential gross floor area, specifically the floor area ratio, as there is an exceedance due to the size of the house against the lot size. Specifically, the variance request is to permit a maximum residential floor area ratio of 80%, whereas 75% is permitted as the next slide, please. So as shown on this slide, the additional gross floor area sort of seamlessly blends in with the rest of the house and creates a very continuous and fluid footprint, creating a more typical building footprint, which really truly aligns with the balance of the similar models in the greater subdivision, all of which, including this one, have received a detailed urban design review through the subdivision application process, as well as an architectural control process. There were also conceptual renderings that were part of the review of the former subdivision application which again, very fulsome urban design review, which was also approved. So the variance request again is to permit a maximum residential floor area of 80%, whereas 75 is permitted. I will say that the dwelling actually does meet all of the other zoning performance standards regulations related to setbacks, building heights, and whatnot. And so really, aside from that floor area ratio exceedance, the dwelling is in full compliance with the regulations of the bylaw. Next slide, please. And here we just have some concept renderings to sort of show you what we presented through the urban design panel review, or the urban design review through the subdivision process. And next slide, please. That concludes my presentation this evening, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Clark at this time? Go ahead, Mr. Dickey.
I see from the, oh, this is to the agent, obviously. I see from the zoning map that the subject subdivision has a site-specific provision, whereas the surrounding properties, particularly behind you, don't have that. And it's my recollection that the site-specific thing provision dealt with the fact it was a school site or something like that. So my real question is, the houses behind you, the zoning for the houses behind you also have the 75% residential floor area. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Member Dickey. So they do have you're absolutely correct in pointing out what the site specific is about. And the RL6 floor area ratio is largely governed by either a meter squared or a floor area ratio percentage, and it's the lesser of, if that makes sense.
Oh, but is your zoning in that regard the same way? The lesser, or oh.
Yes, so I believe it's 355 meters squared, or the lesser of 75% gross floor area ratio. So whichever one you're.
But their zoning provision for the residential floor is exactly the same as yours.
Yes.
Okay. That's what I wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Any other questions? Has anyone called with interest for this application, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
No, Madam Chair, there have been no calls and no one has their hand up.
Very well, we'll take a motion then. Go ahead, Ms. Price.
Taking into consideration the agent's presentation as well as the reports from the agent and staff, I believe the variance to be minor in nature and in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw. The proposed development maintains and protects the character of the existing neighborhood and does not present unacceptable adverse impacts. There have been no letters of opposition. In conclusion, I recommend the proposed application be approved subject to the following conditions. Dwelling be constructed in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings dated October 27th, 2025, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you very much. Have a great holiday season.
Good night. Yeah, you too. Application 118 of 2025, deferred from August the 20th at 1337 Sheldon Avenue. Again, that's application 118 at 1337 Sheldon Avenue. I have Nicole Parr as the agent. You're muted. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. I just said good evening, Madam Chair and committee members. I'm the last one, so hopefully this will be nice and fast for you guys. We're here today seeking one variance from the committee. Next slide, please. This application was deferred from August 20th. At that time, we received some staff comments from Mr. Hansen suggesting that we improve on a couple of our variances. Through very detailed consultation with city staff, most of the conversation with which my client handled personally because this was very important to him and his family. We have removed the floor area ratio completely of the variance and improved on the height slightly. We reduced our lot coverage, the width of the house, introduced a facade setback, and we feel we really address staff's concerns, as well as we're able to maintain a house where my client's family can grow and live in. Next slide, please. I just wanted to note these are just some existing photographs of so you get a context. My client is sort of in the middle of these two dwellings. The dwelling on the left side is already constructed, and they had the same variance approved at 9.59. And as you can see, the building is quite imposing, and we simply want to match the height that was approved previously by the neighbor. Next slide, please. This is just a streetscape. As you can see, on the left side is the neighbor that was already constructed. On the right side, this house was not constructed yet. This was a co-application in 2024. It was not approved, but it's just a context of what might be approved in the neighborhood and where my client's house would sit in relation. Next slide, please. For the west neighbor, as I mentioned, we're matching the height at 9.59. He sits on a grade a little higher than ours, so it's a little bit higher, looks a little higher. He was actually approved for an NFA variance. We are not requesting a variance. You can read the rest. I don't need to read it to you, but I just wanted to say that we want to maintain and stay consistent with our west side neighbor. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, on the east side neighbor, they went to COA in 2024. It was not, I believe they deferred or it was not approved, and I'm not entirely sure, but the lot is a lot bigger than my client's, and it allows for a larger home to be built. So when you look at the being sandwiched by these two dwellings, it makes sense for ours to have an appropriate character as well in the neighborhood. Next slide, please. Just to speak a little bit about the roof, it's a nice French style roof design instead of a flat roof. So it has the slope and the height is about 5-6 feet to ensure maintenance, HVAC, insulation, wiring, plumbing, and everything that goes into that. Next slide, please. I just wanted to mention that this is for a young family. This is their personal residence. This is not for investment purposes. They've taken great care to communicate with city staff, eliminated a variance. They worked closely with city staff and sent a personal letter to them, communicated very efficiently and very sincerely. Next slide, please. To date, we've received 7 support letters. The map in the bottom of my slide shows the location in the orange circle. All neighbors have showed their support and have no concerns about this application. And to date, no opposition from residents has been noted. Next slide, please. When we consider the four tests of the Planning Act as outlined in the staff report, the variance is minor. It's the only variance. The neighbors support it. It's appropriate for the development. It's actually under the lot coverage, which is allowed at 35%. It's a single variance. All other provisions were followed, and we have support of the neighbors, planning staff, and it meets the general intent for a single family dwelling under the official plan. Next slide, please. This is the end of my presentation. I just included a couple of drawings in case there were any questions because my drawings were not available. At this time, I welcome any questions or input from the Committee of Adjustment, and thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Clark. No, sorry, Ms. Parr. Any questions, items of clarification? Okay, I see none. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Tusk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'll move that this singular variance be approved as applied for, finding that it meets the test of the Planning Act. It has the support of all the neighboring properties, not just consistent, but identical to the height of the adjoining property to the west. I guess we'll look forward to a 9.59 variance request on the property to the east in the future. Having said that, again, I believe the application be approved, subject to dwelling being built in general accordance with the site plan elevations dated 11/10/2025, and that the approval expire in 2 years if the building permit hasn't been issued.
Okay, there's discussion on this recommendation. See none, all those in support. Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you
Have
very
a good
much.
night.
Bye-bye.
Madam Chair, I'll just note that there were no calls and no one had their hand up as well for that application.
Thank you. We do have 7 letters of support as well for this application, so we have those on file.
Yes, we do.
Okay, if there are no further comments, we have minutes to confirm for November the 26th. Ms. Price, I appreciate you. And motion to adjourn. Mr. Hardcastle is not here. Ms. Price, thank you. We are adjourned at 9:22.